right.
I know.
Okay, sorry. The floor is yours.
I need to go on that side.
This way?
Yes.
Okay. All right.
Okay, so like I said, my name is Marie. I graduated in '91. Social work. I originally from Kalamazoo, Michigan. I've been there, Tennessee, Maryland, Ohio. I've been a juvenile probation officer, juvenile detention worker, kids prison guard, youth works program in Dayton, Ohio. I was a case manager there. Worked in Saturn as a production supervisor, so just get your degree. I didn't know anything about building cars, but I worked there as a supervisor in production. And I am currently Michigan Youth Challenge Academy. I am a cadre, which is basically, it's a military style school. And the kids are 16 to 18. It's a 22-week program. They come there, they can get their high school diploma or their GED. They have to apply for jobs while they're there. They can go on into the military. They can also go into the Job Challenge program, which is a little bit different than the youth program. They can go back home, go to college, whatever they want to do. But in most cases, it's at least 95% of them get their high school diploma or their GED within that 22-week period. So I'm there as basically babysitter. I wear the military uniform. No, I was never part of the military. People have always thought that I was because of the structure and discipline. When I was here, you asked about extracurricular activities. What I did is I volunteered in the athletic department. So I worked closely with Coach Check, Billy Joe, all of them, the legends way back when. And I ran study tables for the football players, basketball players, traveled, kept stats with Mr. Chambers, who just recently passed. So I did those types of things while I was here. This was one of the best experiences I had by being in an HBCU school. I initially started out at Western Michigan University, which is in Kalamazoo, Michigan. It's 25,000 students. I was there for 3 years, changed majors 3 times, and mom and dad were like, mostly mom, you need to go away, grow up. Had a friend of hers that was going to the school. I had never heard about an HBCU school. And so I went from 25,000 to 2,500. So when you miss class, it used to be the teachers, my mother could call and talk to the instructor. That's how it was. We looked out for each other. Parents can't always send us stuff, so we relied on each other. If I had something, you had it. It was never about me and this is mine. When we come back for homecoming, it is literally homecoming. It's not a competition. Nobody cares what you do. We're just happy to see each other. And this is more like my family than some of my regular family.
That's true. Amen. That's true. That's true. Yes, the absolute truth.
So I had an awesome experience here. I started out, even when I started working, but especially here, I was helping everybody else initially. I sat out a year, came back, changed my major to social work. Breeze through, got 2 A's, 2 B's, winter semester, spring semester when everybody's hanging out in what used to be the Breeze Way, I got 4 A's. So I found where I was supposed to be, and that was in social work. And it's been a lot of different things since then, but I always end up working with kids, chronological kids. I worked at Saturn, and those were adult kids.
That's right.
God has me back working with chronological
Yes,
children.
I like it. I'm still
More so than these adult kids who are getting paid $70,000, $80,000 a year to tell me, oh, I don't have time to put that on the card. Oh. So I really work with the kids, and that's what I've always done. So that's the gist of it. If somebody else wants to go, if you guys have questions, I'm here.
How was the experience here?
Say it again.
How was your experience here?
Like on campus?
On campus.
Just like, I think, so I'm Mikey Summers. I graduated 2004. I actually came out with a psychology degree. And because I wanted to be a child psychologist. And that didn't pan out because the field changed. So I actually, from a friend that I made while I was here on campus, she went to Cincinnati and got her master's in social work. and doing therapy. So I wound up going to the University of Cincinnati to get my master's in social work. So my experience is almost very much like Riddick said. It was family. It was home. It was a shell shock for me when I first came up to Central and my mom dropped me off. I lived in Williamson Hall. I was here with my, I was here, third floor Williamson. Third floor Williamson, yes. We had east and west. I was third floor west. Yes. And my best friend from 4th grade came to school with me. Well, I actually came to school with her. I was planning on going down south, and I came to school with her. And my mom left. She got in the car, and I was looking out the back window. I was like, "Oh, I'm not going back home with you. I'm staying here. Like, this is a thing." So it was very much a shell shock. However, it quickly became family. From the other students, from the faculty, from the teachers. Absolutely correct. It was a shock to be in a place where your classroom only had 15 to 20 people. So if you were missing, people knew you were missing. Your teacher knew you were missing. You were gonna have to dodge them on the yard, right? Because they knew you weren't in that class, and those things. But it made you accountable for what was going on. So very much so the same thing. My 4 years that I spent here were the best times of my life. I created some long-lasting relationships and friendships and connections that I still have. We were talking about connections and being in social work. A big thing about social work that we've been telling everybody is about your connections and then who you know. Absolutely get your fundamentals, get your education, and get your foundation, but a lot of it is who you know. And when you go to a HBCU and have that connection, no matter where we go. If I was in the Bahamas and I seen you with a Central State shirt on, I'm like, "Hey, what's up?" Like, "Hey, Centrillian," right? Like, it becomes a thing. So the experience for me was great and enriching.
Exact same experience. I'm a first-generation college student. And so coming here, I had no idea what to expect. The first time I stepped foot on this campus is when my mom dropped me off. But quickly, my house director, I never left Williamson, so I stayed in Williamson as a freshman and then became an RA there, so I never left Williamson. The house director at that time is still one of my very best friends. She turned 88 this year. And Miss Smith. Okay. So Miss Smith is still one of my really good friends. She lives in Cincinnati. I drop by to see her every so often. And she, in fact, is on Facebook, so she knows I'm here. She's sending me hearts and stuff on Facebook. It's so cool. But anyway, so long-lasting friendships. And even for those of us who ran in different circles, I come in and I still have love for you. So I walk right in and hug her because I know her face, because we're family. And coming back here just sort of drives that home in a way that I certainly didn't expect it. My friends who went to other predominantly white institutions, they go back for a Black homecoming, and it just feels segregated and different. And so I'm very happy to come back and just be with my people for homecoming. It makes a big difference to me. Or sometimes they don't even go back because they don't feel like they can connect to the university the way that I connect to mine.
What was the biggest thing you guys took from this experience?
Just that, the connection. I think that you're always networking. And so I used to tell, when I was at RA, I used to tell people, if I got to go drag your drunk butt out of Broadus Hall, that's your reputation. And you're setting it, even as a freshman, when you walk in the door, you're setting a reputation. And what that means is that when you're in position to hire people and you remember that her drunk butt was out at Broadus Hall acting up, then that's not the first person that you want to hire. Even though you're happy to see somebody from Central State, that's not the person that you want to hire. And so I think that the biggest lesson for me is that you're always networking.
Broadus Hall was the football dirt.
I was gonna say, y'all have no idea because even when I was here,
Y'all don't know nothing about that. Broadus Hall.
They tore down the next year when I was here.
And Lane Hall was
I
the.
was one and they told us about the Breezeway.
The Breezeway.
How this was an all-girls song.
Yeah.
We had the football song.
Yeah,
It
football
was a whole
dorm.
thing. Yeah.
Lane Hall, there was a certain floor in Lane Hall that was the upperclassmen males, and there was a certain floor where it was basketball, then they had a floor for track. When I came, because I had been at Western Michigan, I went directly back to Green and Anderson. I stayed in Green Hall. That was the upperclassmen girls. And when I came here, the way that it was, even though it was the Wolves garden, the hen shed, The football players, that was their job. That was their, what was it called? That was their job that they had. They would work back there at the front desk, and whoever came through that door had to sign in. So guys had to sign in. If you didn't live back there, you had to sign in at the front desk. That was their job setting. And it was totally different. Totally different. So yeah, that was, upperclassmen was Green and Anderson for females. Broadus was football. Williamson and Hunter. And then Page Hall was the, quote, nerd dorm. That was the higher academics dorm. That was, yeah. And then Lane Hall was the upperclassmen males. Yep.
What year are you guys?
2023.
Right? Look at that.
They were all born in 2000s, right?
No, 99.
Oh,
she's
whoa!
like
A year off and went to trade school. Right?
Okay.
Okay,
Okay.
nice.
I was 2002.
Okay.
All right.
Yeah, and speaking of connections, we were just talking before this got started and found out we worked at the same place at Lighthouse Youth Services and had similar coworkers and everything. So like, you know, the word and social work gets around just like it does at small universities. Like you want those connections and to keep your reputation up. And
One of the things that I told, I work for a place called St. Joseph Orphanage, and we actually have a location here in Dayton. And I was explaining to one of the first classes that we went in, I am a hiring manager for my region as well. And when we talk about connections, one of the things that happens just instantaneously, whether it's right or not, I mean, I do it and it's being recorded. But if I see Central State on your resume, I'm going to bring you in. I'm instantly going to bring you in for an interview. That doesn't mean you get the job, but I'm going to bring you in for an interview. And I had a young lady that was a Centralian that I brought in, that I was set up for an interview, but she no-showed the interview. So when we talk about the connections and the things that being family, because I felt like I was an auntie to her, I called her and politely let her know she would never work for St. Joe's. However, and I also gave her a life lesson about what happens when you no-show in the social work community as well. Because even though I'm from Cincinnati, I live in Cincinnati, and I work up here, very well, your reputation follows you. Just like they just had a conversation very quickly, it follows you really quickly, and it can make or break you in the social work field, absolutely. So you always want to be in a place. The connections that you make here are very vital. The ones that you start making on the outside, when you graduate, you get connected to whatever your local alumni chapter is, because I have a lot more connections now. I have like a second phase of Central State that's going on. I've been active, I think, for 5 years, I think now. And it's a whole slew of people I had no idea that I knew about in Cincinnati, and the connections that they have and the interactions that they have with people, and those things. So it's just like reestablishing being on the yard all over again.
a lot of it is showing up too. Like this is the first time I've seen, maybe because it is homecoming day, this many people missing. And it's just so important to show up in social work because we have clients year round that depend on us. And we have people that you think, well, it's kind of like Christmas or Thanksgiving. Now they still have needs on Thanksgiving and Christmas. So we work all around the clock. So it's important just to show up.
And showing up for class again. When I finished at Central State, I worked for a year in Cincinnati, and I thought I had a really good county job. It was a good job, and people were really shocked when I decided to quit so that I can go get a master's degree. But I didn't know the steps. I told you, first generation college student. So I remember calling back here to talk to Dr. Crockett, who walked me through all of the steps, who called over to the University of Cincinnati, and I later learned she was talking to the director, saying that I've got somebody that I'm going to send you. She's really smart, and she's a leader on campus, and I need you to take care of her. So I graduated with honors. I did everything I needed to do in terms of completing the application and submitting it, but it was Dr. Crockett who opened that door. It was Dr. Crockett who made that phone call, and she could do that because I showed up to class. And she could do that because when she said, I need somebody to work for this program, I raised my hand and said, I'll do it. And so she knew who I was, and she knew that if she was going to attach her name to it, it was going to be worthwhile for her. And so that's how I ended up in graduate school, and graduate school was completely free with a stipend once a month until I finished. But that's because I showed my butt up and did the work. Oh.
Now we have a direct connect with UC also. So the University of Cincinnati has, I don't know if he has a stinger or not.
Okay.
A direct connection to University of Cincinnati with Dr. Allen. So there's
cool.
like a pipeline
Oh, that's
straight,
right.
you know,
I
a
heard
good
that.
pipeline, not a school to prison pipeline. We got
Right.
an MSW pipeline that's going for real.
What organizations were you all part of when you were on campus?
So I was, there was a peer, it was called PPI, I don't remember what it stood for at this point, but that was the organization that Dr. Crockett volunteered me for. I was a resident assistant and a member of Delta Sigma Theta sorority.
I did the psychology club, and then there was a mentoring group that was on campus when I was here. I did that group as well.
Positive peer interactions, I knew it was gonna come back to.
And like I said, I was affiliated with the athletic department, so tutoring, stats, and all that kind of stuff.
What do you guys enjoy most about social work?
Yeah, this is our class. Come on.
Oh,
You're good.
everybody's gone.
You're here. That's what's important. You are here.
You said what's the most important thing we like about social work?
I enjoy knowing that I've helped somebody make a change. Like you can help somebody in a grocery store and say, let me bag your groceries, or here, let me give you your money. But what I enjoy is knowing that I've helped somebody make life changes.
One of I call it my why, the reason why that I do what I do. So there's evidence that shows that I work with children specifically. So my why is always around kids. That shows that if a child has one positive relationship, then it actually adds quality to their life and an extension to their life if they have a quality relationship with someone, with at least one person. So my why is to be that one relationship at some point in time, or if it's not me specifically, that I'm cultivating other people, other therapists and case managers to be that one relationship for children.
I think for me, like with them, I work with kids. I have the temperament to work with delinquents.
Absolutely, you can't hear. She's very soothing. Did y'all pick up on that? You have to be in a place like that.
And commanding.
Right, and commanding.
Yeah, I work with juvenile delinquents, and the kids that I work with now, they're not necessarily delinquents, but they have problems with coping skills. They have problems with authority and military authority. So that's hard for them. And I can keep this voice. I had a young lady one time at the girls group home I worked at. She's throwing chairs and all this other stuff. And leave me alone. And she's storming through the house. I said, I can't do that. And this is how I was talking. I can't do that. You're not being safe. And I'm talking that way the whole time. And people ask me how, and I said, it's the grace of God, first of all, because I really want to choke you right now.
Yeah.
I'll go to jail, and I don't want to go to jail. So it's just having that temperament and being able to work with the kids. I used to take stuff personally. So like the first time I got burnt out, I had one of my young kids that was 15. His brothers, his dad, his uncles had all been locked up in a part of the system. So children live what they learn. That was him. He was 15. This is before computers were big. He had 3 pages of felonies. And Carlos decided he wanted to self-medicate. So he was, instead of taking his medication, he was smoking weed, breaking into people's houses. So I told him, I said, you're not being safe. Somebody's going to shoot you and kill you. Broke my heart to have to send him away. Even though he had 3 pages of charges, it broke my heart, and I started taking that stuff personally, and I had to get to the point that I understood I can't want it more than you want it. And I have to give and pour in. I'll give and pour into and help you as much as I can until I see you've shut down completely. And I'll tell the girls and the boys that I work with, I'm just going to do my job at this point because you're not listening, you're not being safe. So I used to want to see that change. As long as I planted something in them, like she said, as long as I planted something, I know that, I have to trust that God's going to take care of the rest. I might not ever see it. Now with the program I'm in now, because it's a 22-week program, they come there, get their high school diploma or their GED. I have a higher probability of seeing them succeed at something. Aside from getting coping skills and processing skills and problem-solving skills, I'm able to see them go from 1.2 GPA and having 0 credits to graduating in 22 weeks. So that makes it, that to me, that's good. But I have to learn to balance that because I want to help and do and care and I do this for you. And no, I can't. I have to back up because I have to be healthy myself. So it's just seeing people blossom and grow.
And I think there's also something that resonates with me about helping people in the most difficult times of their lives, and like helping them have with dignity get through the most difficult times that they will probably ever endure. So what I do now is I work at the Mayerson Center in Cincinnati. Mayerson Center is where the kids in the city go who have been physically or sexually abused. So they go, they can see a doctor, they can see a forensic social worker, and until I got there, they were referring people out for mental health therapy. So I do a really short-term therapy for those kids. And there is just really something about being able to sit with a kid through their most difficult time in their life and helping them get past that.
Did you guys choose Central yourselves or someone else chose it for you?
I chose Howard.
I
My
chose
mother
Alabama
said,
State.
my mother said, you are not going there. We do not have that kind of money, so find some other place. Now, there is no other place for me. I do not regret that decision one bit.
For me, it was my mom. And a friend of hers had a daughter that was going here. She actually left, but I ended up staying in graduate. So it was kind of like, you need to go.
What about you?
Alabama State. And then I knew I wanted to go to HBCU. My grandma said, you're not going down south. And my best friend was coming here. I actually enrolled in Central. Say it was a Wednesday. I enrolled in Central on Wednesday and classes started Monday. Like it was, I was fighting, kicking and screaming about I was not staying in Ohio. But even though my mom and my dad and my uncle and auntie, I have a legacy of Centralians actually. But I just didn't want to follow in that. I wanted to go down south.
So you've been to Cincinnati your whole life?
Yes,
What schools?
performing arts. What school did you go to?
Staff.
There. What year did you come out?
2018.
Okay. Hi.
My name is Summer. I am from Detroit. And this class, I think I was put in here because my major is criminal justice. I want to be a lawyer. But I actually, at first, in my head, I was like, okay, I don't really think that I need this class. But then it clicked, like, I want to be working with people from different backgrounds, ethnicities, and stuff like that. So me being in this class actually helps because it would help my dealing with people. And I'm not a big people person, but at the same time, I love helping people. It's just like I like being that person that you can come to, or the person that people can find.
I do want to say this because sometimes people think social worker and people think bleeding heart and you just are nice to people. There is a level of professionalism
Yes,
that you bring to the table that makes a difference.
Absolutely.
And so I just wanted to throw that out there because I think sometimes people don't recognize that until you really start to go into detail and talk to them about it. And then they're like, oh, wait. Yeah, so.
And with my being military, working in the military, like I said, I've never been in the military, but with my being in that discipline, in social work, she's right. People think, oh, you're a social worker, you're always nice, and you let people do what they want. No. Again, you have to be able to set those boundaries. Don't get it twisted. This one time I worked in a kid's jail, and I was a teacher, but I'd already been trained in all the TCI stuff because I'd worked in other places before. And a fight took place, and I actually had on a skirt this particular day, and even though I wasn't supposed to restrain, I wasn't going to allow two kids to get in a fight. And it wasn't until afterwards that the kid said, Miss Johnson, man, you took off and jumped across the table. And I just said, don't let the skirt fool you. I said, if I have to do what I have to do. So just know, just because we're nice and care, and there's another side to us, and you have to have that discipline. You have to be able to set those boundaries. First time I failed because of my heart. I said, Carlos, redhead Carlos, my sweetheart.
Remember your one.
But once you set those boundaries, I re-enter this field with a totally different mindset.
Because I actually understand that, like, I can actually see that, like, getting too close to the people that you're helping could affect that in a big drastic change. Because of course you don't want to see a kid go down the wrong road, but when you get too attached, it's like it's only so much that you can do. So, but I actually have the question of, like, I don't know if they asked this already, but what is like the biggest obstacle you have faced working in this field?
I will say too, for me, it was the very beginning in passing that freaking test. So in order to have an independent license in the state of Ohio, you have to pass the test. And so for me, that was the very first one. The very first obstacle that was huge because it took me 3 times to pass that test. I think the second thing was the first time I lost a client. So the first time somebody died, that gave me pause. I had to sit and think about what the heck am I doing, and do I really still want to do this? Now, they die a little more regularly.
Unfortunately.
So this is year 25 for me as a social worker. So it doesn't affect me like it did that very first time.
Mm-hmm.
I think for me, obstacle, I'm still sitting in the obstacle with with the independent licensure test. So still currently sitting in that obstacle of having the highest credential possible for a social worker in the state of Ohio. So that's an obstacle. The other one, which it's weird how it turned out, but even being able to apply and seek out different levels of social work without having that credential and then just being a Black female. Because there are just, even in my agency, until I became a supervisor, within the last 6 years, there were no Black supervisors at all. And a lot of the staff are direct care staff and those things, so just even at the level of middle management, there were none. And then in the position that I'm sitting in now, I am one. So that becomes an obstacle that happens, that you just have to kind of put your pants on and get ready for every day. But you show up. It's the part of showing up. I show up because you guys are here and you guys are coming up next, right? And there's a thing, so I show up so that I can make sure that people behind me can see that, hey, it's possible, because I didn't have a person to look at and say, oh, that's actual possibility that I can be in those positions.
I would say my biggest obstacle would be me. Sometimes we don't realize our own potential, and we don't push ourselves. We can push other people. I can push you, and I forget what I have in me. And then also, like I said, taking all that stuff in. You have to have boxes. You have to have a box where this is my personal time. This is my time to veg out on the couch or at my house and cook if that's what I want to do. This is my time with my friends. This is my time with my job. You have to be able to compartmentalize. And if you don't, like she said, it's not funny, but she's had a whole lot more patients die. I've had a whole lot of other kids that got locked up, got sent away. I've had kids and I stopped watching the news, especially when I lived in Dayton and I was involved in that. I stopped watching because I would see the kids that I knew being killed or locked up or something major happening. So you have to be able to compartmentalize, and when you don't do that, you can lose yourself. And those boundaries get all crossed and mixed up.
You burn out. I think the other thing that was really important, that when I say this, I always say that I wish somebody had told me, but the reality is, if somebody had told me this, I wouldn't have believed it. I would have said, you burn out, but I'm good at what I do, right? We not built the same, I'm good. So, but it is so important to take care of yourself. I think I heard you say you're a nurse. So important to take care of yourself and to understand that the things that you do in your 20s to take care of yourself, whatever that looks like, go for a jog, read a book, whatever, may not work in your 30s.
Yep.
Don't work at all in your 40s, right? So as your body changes and the world around you changes and your job changes. So I've been at Children's Hospital for 6 years. Prior to that, I've considered myself a really good therapist. I can meet you in your darkest, deepest time, and we can go over what happened, and I can help you get through it and move past it. But when I got to Children's, I was not only hearing the stories of what these people were going through, but I could see it because every week there's a child abuse meeting, and every week there's a screen bigger than this that they show. Every broken bone, every cigarette burn on a kid, every torn vagina, all of that you are looking at so that somebody says, Dad says kid fell off the couch and that's how he broke his arm. And they analyze it and say, no, you would have had to twist the kid to get that kind of a break. So every week there was that kind of meeting. And guess what? The stuff that I did before that to feel better, to take care of myself, that stuff stopped working. And it was so easy for me to go home, and I am still being recorded, but it was so easy for me to go home and get a glass of wine. Mm-hmm. But I know what happens to people who always go home and get a glass of wine. So I didn't want those problems either. So I ended up having to do something different to take care of myself. And I had people in my corner who said, hey, you need to go woosah or something because something ain't, you getting too deep. And so that is what's allowed me to maintain 20 plus years in this field. Mm-hmm. And I do think it's the same for nurses and for other people who work directly with people like that.
Because you can take on all their junk.
And you do.
Yes. Self-care is huge. And being able to have, so the field of social work is very broad. Clearly you can see just from the three of us that are here and what's going on and what's happening. With that, and it's one of those things that if you feel yourself burned out in one thing, there's an opportunity to reinvent yourself all the time in social work, and there are many different facets to it, and it looks very different. So even if it's something that when we talk about connections, and I've been with my job for 15 years, and there were moments where I burnt out in different things, but because of the connections I had, I was able to make up what I wanted to do next. And they were like, oh yeah, go ahead, go do that. And that was the thing. But being able to look at different multifacets of what's going on, I never thought I would be in administration. I thought I always wanted to work directly with the kids. I want to be right on the front line. I want to do that. And then I realized very later, like, wait, I can affect change at a different level and do those things. And now you probably couldn't get me to do direct care for longer than 8 hours. So, I mean, it makes a difference. But you definitely have to have a level of self-care and a level of self-awareness and own your why, what you're doing it for on a daily basis.
Questions, comments, or concerns?
I know you said you started with psychology, but did all you guys ever just start out with social work?
The social work department when I was here wasn't accredited, so it didn't even cross my mind that social work was something. So I knew I wanted to work with children, and so I did sociology. So I was still in this building. And I heard Mikey say she only wanted to do direct practice. When I went to UC for a master's degree, I actually got the master's in administrative social work because I knew I didn't want to go back home, and I was trying to prepare myself as best I could to be okay. And so I knew I was going to be an administrator at some point. And then did that for a lot of years, and now I'm on the flip side of that. Just let me see some people, help some people so I can move on.
Yeah, we're currently accredited, and so that means you qualify for an advanced standing master's degree, which is a 1-year master's. I wish I had done that. So right now is a great time to stick with the social work degree and get your license and go all the way through with it.
Absolutely.
I started at, like I said, Western Michigan. When I came out of high school, the first thing that everybody did was business. So I went to business for 1 year. Did wonderfully horrible in that. Then I changed. My mother said, oh, you get a job in medical technology, you'll always get a job. I did that for my mother, and I got D's and F's. Mm-hmm. Then I changed over to education. did kind of okay. Then I transferred down here and stayed in education. Like I said, I sat out 1 year, came back into social work. That was my niche. So.
Yeah, I asked that because a lot of people don't like choose social work at first. Like when I went to trade school, I did CNA, so then I came here and I was like, well, let's try social work.
And like they said, if it's in this building, it's all tied together. So I took criminology, I took juvenile justice, and again, my degrees in social work.
You had a question? My question was, you guys like, when you guys did get your license and stuff like that, and, you know, you got your degree and stuff of that nature, did you ever like get into a position where you felt stuck? Like, literally, like you weren't doing exactly what you wanted when you graduated or when you got your license?
I have not felt like that since having my license, but I did feel like that before I went back for a master's degree. So I got what I thought was a good job with the county, and the money was decent, but I would have been stuck there. Like there was not a whole lot of room for growth, and I wasn't really sure that's what I wanted to do. And so going back to get a master's degree, I sat out a year after undergrad before I went back. I will say, if you have the opportunity to go straight through, OMG, go straight through. Don't.
Yeah, go straight through.
It gets harder and harder the longer you sit out.
It does.
So I did. I went back, and after that, I think Mike he said it. You go into a place, and then not only is there room to sort of do that job, but there's so much else you can do. I work at Children's Hospital at the Medicine Center, but there are 300 social workers at the hospital. They do all kinds of stuff there. If I don't want to work at the hospital, I can go back to an agency like Lighthouse or to some other. I can, at this point, work with the police department if I choose. So there's so much to do in the field that I don't think I will ever feel stuck. I'll just go do something else.
Mm-hmm.
And they're right, as far as the longer you sit out, the harder it is to go back. So I can attest to that. I've sat out, should go back and get my master's. And I just haven't done it yet. But I also, if I do feel kind of stuck, I also look at it a couple different ways. I can always apply for something else. But also, whatever I experience, whatever I do, whatever jobs I've had, they're tools in my tool belt. And I might not know when I'm going to need them or why I went through a certain experience, whether it's professionally or personally, but it's tools in my tool belt. So I might be able to navigate through the similar situation better next time. I might be able to help somebody else navigate through it because of things that I've gone through. So it's never wasted to me. You have to have that push inside yourself. Just like I said, you push other people, push yourself, go back and do it.
I asked because like I have a sister. She graduated from Lane College with a sociology degree. So she wanted to do something like this similar, basically, you know. And she actually did. Like she was all the way in Tennessee, and she knew she did not want to go home. So it was just like, okay, I don't want to go home. I want to be on my own, like make my own money and stuff like that. And she wanted to go into her field. So it happened for a very short period of time. Like she went to Nebraska because that's where her best friend lives, and she went there, and she was working at this juvenile center, but it was for girls. So she was working with these girls who did drugs, fought a lot, stuff like that. She was working with them, making really, really good money. And then she had this thing where it was just like, she did not want to be too far from home. She was so far from home. She got very, very homesick, and she came back. And with the money that she had, she was supposed to get a place and all that good stuff. And it fell apart. And like you guys said, she sat out. When she sat out, she applied to Alabama State. She applied there for her master's, and she didn't get accepted. And it's like it broke her because now she's stuck in a position where it's just like, okay, I'm at home.
and there's nothing for me here. They're just like, she's working at a hospital. She's like the counselor or in a hospital, and she works with mental patients, and she works with them. She gets paid like literally the smidge above minimum wage in Detroit, and it's just like she's stuck in a place, and she's in
I will say that is the reason that I pushed myself to get a master's degree and to then go get the independent license. Cincinnati is not my home. I grew up in North Chicago, and so I felt like I needed to put myself in a position to succeed. Even before I finished my master's degree, my first child was born, and so either you're gonna succeed or we're not gonna be able to eat. So, because I didn't want to go back home, and so I pushed myself so hard because I didn't have a support system. The family I have in Cincinnati is the family that I created. And now, having gone back to, and I spent so many years like getting married, working, raising the kids, all of that. So it was probably, I don't know, my key says she's been back for 5 years, so I probably have been back for like 8 years back with the chapter, the Cincinnati Alumni chapter. So it took that long, but I pushed it because I didn't have family. I didn't have the resources, and I had to create it myself. I had to create my own reputation in Cincinnati. I had to be able to sit across the table from people and know what I'm talking about.
And that's where the networking comes in, like you keep talking about. It's all about who you know and the impression you make on them. So if you don't, and then you have to push. Did I always, when I wasn't working, did I always want to get up and apply for jobs? No. And even if I didn't for a day, you best believe I didn't sit there for the next 2-3 weeks waddling in something. You can't. You have to have that drive to something. She has to find what she likes to do. Like I said, once I changed majors into social work, it's a breeze. So she has to find. So if it's not exactly sociology or what she's doing, she's going to have to keep applying for things, keep doing things until she finds what's easy for her for the most part, that she's comfortable in. Now there's going to be bad days, just like working with these kids. I enjoy it. I really do. They get on my nerves, but I enjoy it. My mother was upset with me because I had a position as an executive assistant, excuse me. I don't want to chase behind an adult and remind them, you got to be, you drop this, I'd rather work, I said it, for a lot of kids. So she has to find what she likes to do. Bottom line. And it's going to take time. She can't give up.
I told her that, like I told her, like, you know, when you graduated college, like, me and my mom have expressed to her, like, you have to understand that things were not going to be handed to you. So, with that being said, it was just like, I feel like that's part of what she feels. But she also feels like she graduated, was making good money, and now she just is, like, has a degree that she's wasted.
There's a lot of people
like that.
on the streets living
With degrees.
doctor
Yeah.
degrees.
Yep.
So that's, you can't give up.
There's lots of graduate schools too.
Uh-huh.
If you get rejected from one, you go to the
Yeah,
next.
there's another one to go to.
Yeah. Scholarships for all types. There's scholarships for people with 3 fingers. Scholarships for people
Right.
with
That's handy.
yeah,
Like
exactly.
that, like, so I've told her, we've actually told her multiple times, like, you gotta be patient and actually push yourself to do it, because like, you sitting here and moping around because you graduated and you felt like you've done what people thought that you couldn't. Now that you've reached that point, you feel like, oh, okay, so now my life is gonna fall into place, when you still have to, like, if you let God handle it, then you have to still give him that 50%. Like, you can't sit here and do that. And we've told her this numerous amounts of times, but she's still working. She's working on a house. She can't drive if her life depended on it, so I'm not really betting on that one. But she's working. She still has that, you know, I'm 24 living in this house.
Oh, that's cute.
Do you remember what I said? You can't want it more than she does, or they do.
Mhm.
You can't want it more than
Yeah, I
her.
was
So
just saying that.
Yeah.
I can only
focus
do
on
it better
what
when I'm
you
a freshman. I have to literally, like, I'm sitting here and I'm telling her when she calls me and she's talking to me and stuff like that, and I tell her this stuff, like, I can't help you I can't do this for you. Oh, I'm a freshman right now, and I'm majoring in criminal justice, and I still have to focus on me and what I'm doing, considering the fact that, like, I actually wanted, my thing is to not end up where you are. I'm trying to learn from her and from my other siblings who didn't go to college or didn't last in college. So it's just like, I'm trying to learn from you, but I can't help you.
Two things to what you're saying. One is, you do have to focus on you. And there's going to get to a point, and I don't know if this is a blessing or a curse for me, you're going to have to cut off. You're going to have to say, look, I can't take all this negativity. I love you, but I got to go do what I got to do. It's going to get to a point that you're going to have to do that. And it's not always easy. I'm able to do it. I don't know how. Like I said, I don't know if it's a blessing or a curse, but I can cut people off.
I can do that too.
I didn't do that. But seriously, they know. Once I'm done, you have to get to that point.
I've done it in high school. I've like literally cut people off who were like put this weight on me. Like I've had friends who have this thing where they go through stuff every day with their moms, their fathers, their family, and stuff like that. I've had those friends, and every day they came to school, it was something else, some different type of drama. And it weighed on me because now I have a friend that I feel like I need to elevate and stuff like that and give her this self-confidence when in actuality, I still have to worry about me graduating. So with that being said, like I literally had to cut her off. It was too much drama. And I told her, look, I love you, I'll care for you, and you can still come to me. But right now, I need to focus on what I have to do. So that cutting off part, it was really hard for me because even in high school, like, I had friends that died. I had friends that have, like, went to jail and came back and stuff like that. Like, I know when to cut people off. I know when somebody is a weight on me.
It's harder with families.
Yeah, true.
It's harder. It is. But again, you can't want it more than her.
We have 15 more minutes.
Okay.
Our nurse friend got something to say.
I do. Okay, so listening to you, hon, I just don't want you to lose sight of, because in my field, you need to take care of you. When you focus on you and what you're supposed to be doing, the rest of that will fall off. These people won't make it to where you're going. You can't focus on what your sister doing. You can't focus on what your friend doing. You have to stay focused on what it is that you're trying to do and what you're trying to accomplish. You got to do that, like she said, when you can push other people, you support them and you doing that, what are you doing for yourself? How are you supporting and pushing yourself to where you need to be? Because then y'all gonna come see me. So focus, like I'm listening to you, don't lose sight on that. That's fine, it's hard. I mean, they pull at you. I'm telling you, I got a sister. That's what up. Brothers too. But let me tell you, I gotta focus. I can't focus on them because they're gonna do what they want to do when they want to do it, and that's gonna be that. That's okay. They find their way. What's for them is for them. What's for you is for you. And it's not gonna be the same. It's not gonna be the same road, the same path, the same nothing. So you don't have to do what it is you need to focus on. If you take on all that energy and stuff now, you're gonna be burnt out before you get there. And the field will light you on fire. Trust. Like they say, you see, I work closely with Social Work. You see a lot, baby, that you have to turn off. It gets rough. And you will go home and you will be like, I'm not going back. And then you're going to get up and go back. So you got to really focus on what you got to do. The rest of that's going to come together. God got them. He keeping you too, so you got to do what you got to do for yours. Because that you can't do. Or then you won't be in class next time because you're going to be trying to figure out how to help this one, help that one, do that. And then you're going to be like, how am I at McDonald's? You want fries. No, I asked you for fries. So, yeah, you gotta focus that energy, redirect that, you know what I'm saying? Don't let that just hit you so hard all the time. Hear that and tell them, you know what, I'm gonna pray for you, I see that, I hear you, and I'm sure you're gonna come up with what's the best solution for you, because they gotta do it. Like you said, you can't want it more than them. You can't, because they're not gonna do it if they don't wanna do it, period. So shake that off, figure out how to reach out on that energy, do something different, because this field is definitely built on the hardest of the hard. You are seeing people at their lowest. You are seeing people in situations you only heard about. Half of these things you never knew existed. And you have to see these things, you know these things, and you have to go in there, and you can't fall apart like them because you got to figure out how you're going to put this back together or what's going to be the best outcome for this situation. So it's going to be a whole nother ball game. So figure out now, right now, how you going to figure, how you going to work that. Because then you come to me, I'm stressed out, I need Xanax, I need this, I need that. I'm like, but you don't need none of that. You're not doing that. So, yeah, definitely listen to that. I ain't gonna lie, I'm gonna get work y'all class.
Thank you, friend. Thank you, friend.
I'm saying it's rough, it's hard.
No more Xanax candy bars.
That's right. That's right.
We don't like that here. Not I.
Any more questions?
Questions or comments? Concerns?
What jobs are hiring at your agency right now? Go ahead. No, go ahead.
Well, I
No,
know
go ahead.
Michigan Youth Challenge Academy, they have places in Kentucky, Indiana, Hawaii, California, Georgia, Texas. So
What did I
whatever.
score? No. Connection.
And there are other positions besides the ones where you have to wear the Army fatigue stuff. So we do have 2 social workers, 2 case managers, social workers. They're licensed that work with the kids if they need individual counseling. There's other programs that are there. So like we're saying, you have a gamut of different experiences and everything here, but our degrees are the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
So again, you have to find your niche. So yeah, I'm trying to go to Hawaii. Youth Challenge Academy.
Heck yeah.
They had this 150 years before they'll have another volcano. I'm like, I'll be dead before they I'm trying to go. So, but there are a lot of different places.
Okay.
Our for St. Joseph Orphanage, our Cincinnati location is always hiring for direct care staff, case management, therapy, those things. We have a residential unit where we have 24 beds where children stay 24/7. So that unit is always hiring. And then for myself in the Dayton region, I am hiring for therapists.
And Children's Hospital is
The
always
hospital.
hiring. So any kind of social worker, then any department of a hospital is available, including residential setting as well for kids with mental health concerns.
Children's the other day had a position that said like LISWS, 32 to 52 per hour.
That's the social worker 1. Yes.
Yes.
And you had a hand raised.
I don't know if that's good money.
So, and I think the other thing, just about connections, when I got to Children's, I got there for 4 years, 4.5. I had been completing applications online. I was at the Lighthouse, and my position was eliminated. April, thank you for training your team like that. Now we can put your team under this person because they can work independently. So we're going to put them under. That was 15,
Okay.
16. So I called the SOAR. Actually, she called me. How you doing? I heard you just lost your job. Is there something I can do? I would like to go to Children's. I've put in 42 freaking applications over the past 4 years. Another SOAR works in HR. So all she did was pull my application. Once you pull my application and let me get in front of you, I can take it from there. So they pulled the application. I had the interview, and it happened pretty quickly before the severance pay from Lighthouse ran out. But on top of that, so I went in, of course, because Children's Hospital pays a lot more, but I went in with a higher salary, but there's an advancement process that you can go through. So I worked my way up to, it's a 30-page document and the interview and sit in front of the committee, but now I'm a social worker too. And you can advance again for another 15% raise as a social worker 3, and I think I'm going to sit on the 2 for a minute. But there are always opportunities for advancement if you go to some place with as many employees
As Children's Hospital. Thank you, guys.
Yeah, I want to thank you all for your time and for coming in and just giving us that chance. And thank you for letting me make it digital so everyone who didn't see it today will see it very soon.
Awesome.
And make sure you tell them that the camera adds 20 pounds too.
Yeah.
Now that's my real weight.
Well, thank you.